That's good, because I was actually going to ask you, right? If anybody's followed you, right, you have some quote unquote controversial, if you will, thoughts about men versus women or men and women. Mm-hmm. Have any of those thoughts or the things that you preach, has any of those changed or evolved, right? I remember watching a Malcolm X movie, and he said that, at first he was so centered on only black people till he traveled the world and seen that other white people believe in Islam just like they do. Mm-hmm. And so he evolved, and that's kind of what changed him. Now that you speaking to many women, many men about these scenarios that you preach, has your stance changed, or is it still the same?
It's still the same, but it has evolved, because when I began doing this, I've always saw it in phases, and I've always saw it as an evolutionary path. And in my mind, I've always known that women needed a lot of help, that women needed a lot of development. But in order to start that process, women needed to know about men, because ultimately women don't know anything about men. They think they do, but they don't. They know nothing. And so a lot of women have their identities wrapped up in men. So speaking about men are really only like 10% of the equation. Women are 90% of the equation. So after I talked about men are men. They can't be anything more than that. They're not going to change. They're not going to become cats, dogs. They're not going to evolve into women. So after I finished speaking about men, there's really nothing else to tell women about men that I haven't already told them. So once that conversation is over, now we have to turn the mirror towards women. And what you find out is that in these dynamics, 90% of the discussion has to be on women. And I find that women have a lot of problems. I find that women are very, very narcissistic, and they do not realize it. I think women lack a lot of self-awareness. And how I've taken my message, because I've got a little comedic edge, I find a way to show women themselves in a way that not many people can get women to admit that they are wrong. I have a way of getting women to admit, damn, I'm a terrible person, right? I've gotten women to see how terrible they are as friends, as relationship partners. Women are terrible relationship partners, right? But, for me, it's about the truth. This is not me taking sides, because I believe that the world is in shambles. I believe that the communities are jacked up. I believe that, and all of this has to do with human behavior and how the sexes relate to each other and how the sexes relate to the planet. So it's not all on men. Men have their things that's wrong with them.
For sure.
I spoke about that.
But the question I was going to say is that with men, right, I feel like as a man, we're held accountable at almost every turn, right? Your mama holds you accountable. Your friends hold you accountable. Everybody kind of holds you accountable. Do you see the same type of path for women?
No.
Okay.
No. So I think women are allowed to be, they're allowed to be delusional. They're allowed to not be disciplined. See, give you an example. If a boy child is crying and a girl child is crying, if he fell and she fell, they're gonna look at him and be like, boys don't cry, this, that, and the other one. And they'll just look at her, that's what girls do, they're just emotional. Let them cry, let them do this. Well, that's bad, because as girls grow older, they never know how to control and govern their emotions. They're allowed to allow any emotion, anger, frustration, sadness, depression, no matter what, they're allowed to express it however they want to express it. I've also come to the conclusion that, well, let me back up, because everybody knows that I date women.
Right.
And when it comes to me speaking about relationship dynamics, a lot of the rebuttals always say, well, lesbian relationships have so much more violence. They only say that because they're thinking about a relationship where a man might be putting his hands on a woman. They're not including the other side of the equation where women are putting their hands on men and men are not calling the cops.
True, yeah.
Women are very violent. A woman will put her hands on a man. She will hit him, spit in his face, call him all kinds of names, and everything is totally fine. Women are allowed to do this, and nobody should say anything about it. Now, these women they will be in these relationships and they will hit a man and they will take that same behavior and they'll take it to a lesbian relationship. See, it's the same person, same behavior.
Right.
Right? But it's looked at as different because the man is stronger and he's expected to hold himself. But a lot of times in a lot of these relationships, women are extremely narcissistic and violent. And this is what I have discovered as I continue to work with women. And so what I realize is that women actually want men to be slaves. They actually want men to be their personal slaves.
But you did preach that men were slaves in our first interview.
Yes, they are. They are slaves. But who are they slaves to? They're slaves to corporations, right? They're slaves to the military. They're slaves in everything that they do. Their whole purpose was for them to work for somebody. And that's what you see. The man then is a slave to his sex drive. And by a man being a slave to his sex drive, he turns around and becomes a slave to a woman who expects him to be a slave to his sex drive and her.
Real life.